Welcome to the Callis Mindset, the show where discipline meets growth and high performance is a way of life. I'm your host, Kannon Callis, and thanks for tuning in to today's episode, where we'll sit down with the elite entrepreneur, top real estate professional, and leader who refuse to settle for average. If you're ready for thinking sharper, leading stronger, and building a mindset that separates you from others, you're in the right place. Today's high performance expert is Jonna Weber, top local realtor, founder of the Idaho Real Estate Investing Network, and also founder and host of the Real Estate Investing for Life podcast. Welcome, Jonna.
Hey, thanks, Kannon. Great to see you today. Appreciate
Yeah,
you having me on.
I appreciate you being here too. So I've known you for almost a year now, and I'm part of the organization R.E.I.N, which used to be Boise Real Estate Investor Network. I want to dive into some deeper context today than just surface level conversation. Things like how you founded multiple organizations, how you're connecting others, and really just understanding your path through that.
Perfect.
So let's start with, where did you begin before launching your first organization?
Well, I wasn't always an entrepreneur, although I would say I was always entrepreneurial. And so I began my first two careers were not particularly entrepreneurial. I was a meeting planner. I planned corporate meetings and events, which is why I still like to plan events today, I'm sure. And then I was a teacher. So my first venture truly, I started investing in real estate back while we were doing those full-time jobs. But really, I started as a true entrepreneur, I would say, when I was in my 30s. So not right away. And that was when I really got into real estate as an agent.
Got it. Cool. So you
Yeah.
started out as a teacher, someone who planned events, and then that experience kind of carried you into some of the opportunities that you've taken advantage of recently. And now, since I've known you, you've been a multi-venture founder, deeper in real estate than I've been, especially in this market. And I'm sure that you're one of the best connectors I've met. Your personality type and the activities that you focus your time on has been helping others help themselves, and also kind of creating an expectation of success for themselves.
Oh, I like the way you put that. Thank you. Yes, you understand me, Kannon, as I do believe that people sometimes, they need someone else to believe in them before they believe in themselves. And I definitely was and am multi passionate as an entrepreneur. And there was a time when it was probably too much, and I'm working to streamline now and make everything go together. But yeah, one time I was running a large real estate team. I was starting up this Idaho Real Estate Investor Network. And I was also, my husband and I, of course, have our rental properties, but we were also owning and managing a restaurant and business. And so there came a point where it was a bit too much for a little bit, but I've learned so many lessons along the way that what I'm doing now feels like a light load. And it's enabled me to reach people in ways that I never could have imagined. It's a great challenge.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you guys were managing a restaurant. I know that alone is more than a full-time job.
Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. Real estate it's a much better opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah. So how did you get into real estate investing? Like, where did that idea come from? What was your first investment like?
Well, it came from a need to figure out how to have more than one stream of income. We had bought some rental properties early on in our marriage. My husband was the one gung-ho for real estate investing at the time. I was the scared one. I'd be like, okay, that could be your deal. But I came around, obviously, and really started looking at it back when we had a recession. Back, you were a kid, Kannon, but there was, a really scary time when real estate went down, and we were a one income household, and we had one rental property that was negative 800 cash flow a month. We didn't know what we were doing. And I started looking out for other people that were doing something different, doing it differently than I was doing, and had this little thought, like, what if I could sell this one rental property and turn it from a negative cash flow situation to a positive, and painfully made that choice at the bottom of the real estate market. But it actually was a great decision because it propelled our real estate investing moving forward. And a couple years after that, we were buying properties and so forth. And I had a great realtor at the time. And she's like, Jonna, you know the market as well as I do. You should get your license. And that's why and when I did that after we had invested in a lot of properties. And I thought I was going to get my license just to flip a house or two a year, maybe help a friend or family member. And before I know it, I was doing many, many transactions every year and wind up growing a real estate team. I think one of my traits, good, bad, or indifferent, is I don't do things small. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well.
Wow, that's awesome. So you started with one single family property. Eventually that opportunity grew as the market recovered and you purchased more and more properties. Then you realize I'm really good at this and I should probably be doing real estate professionally. Started a team and grew it.
Yeah.
And when did you come up with the idea to start the investor network?
It was actually an iterative situation that it happened over a number of years. I actually after I got the bug for real estate investing, I wanted to get around other people and know what they were doing and get that relationship with other like-minded people. And I started a meetup back in 2014, 13 or 14. And I was fresh off going to a Bigger Pocket summit where I had been around 300 real estate investors and was all pumped up and started this quarterly meetup. And it's in, the very different way. It's still going on today. And then I started a Facebook group for real estate investors back in 2017. And I was the first member and just like, okay, guys, who wants to talk about real estate investing in Idaho? And it grew. And you and I are both entrepreneurs, Kannon. So we know like little ideas kind of form. And in 2022, I was trying to figure out what to do with this community that I have built, but wasn't, not only was I not monetizing, but I was spending quite a bit of money to keep it up. And just thought maybe we could get this off of Facebook, off of something informal where no one really has a chance to really get to know each other and really form this network. And so I just started building it, really not knowing what was going to be the next step, but I was excited. And we had a half-day real estate conference here that we launched. What was that then called R.E.I.N. And we had 120 people show up and they were excited. And we were able to use that start to build a website out and start putting things in place to formalize it and make it something that my goal is to have it something that's in place and growing sustainable for decades to come, because I think Idaho needs something like this.
Yeah. So you really were just trying to find like-minded people in real estate, create a meetup, and because there was a demand there, you kind of met that need for yourself first, but also for other people. And then from there, when did it shift from a part-time or like a hobby into just a major responsibility?
Pretty quickly. It was very interesting. I think sometimes being naive is a good thing. Like I really had no idea what was cut out, what would be asked for me in the following 12 to 24 months, of how hard it would be to organize the behind the scenes and get everything done and figure out how it was going to pay for itself. And all of that stuff was a little bit tougher than I thought. But and there definitely have been some times along the way where it's like, oh my goodness, playing the long game here, is it worth it? But it truly has been a passion project, something that I believe strongly in. And I just, over the last 12 months, have really taken some other things off my plate and streamlined and focused. And it's amazing what happens when you're able to put your time and attention on something. So passionate is great, and running 2 to 3 businesses and they can play into each other is great. But I just caution everyone to be careful and make sure that you prioritize and have a method behind your madness to make sure that they all funnel into one another. Otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of half results.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like this was a long-term, you're all in on it, even if it's a slow grow, you had a purpose behind it. You had the passion where you were going to show up no matter how long it took. And I think these days, a lot of people have the attention span that's just not quite at that point. They think that it's going to happen quickly or it's not going to happen at all. But when you keep showing up day after day after day after day, those results compound. And then you look back and you're like, how did we even get here? I've
Yeah.
done so much in the last 10 years or, 5 years, whatever it may be for these long-term goals.
Yes, people overestimate what they can do in a year. I know you've heard this. They underestimate what can be done in a decade. And
Yep.
I'm a living testament to that with my real estate agent career. And I just look back on a decade of real estate sales, and I just am so humbled by the amount of people that I was able to serve and the production that we were able to do. But it wasn't until like year 3 that it really all gelled. And I just heard that on a show this week. Actually, it's like that year 3 things start gelling, and we're actually in year 3 of the Idaho Real Estate Investor Network right now, which is really encouraging because things just gel, and you get from, quote unquote, the cold calling stage to people coming to you if you're consistent and you're adding value to people.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just knowing you, and giving it everything you have and showing up for yourself and for other people has led to connections that are so much further than what you probably imagined. Because there's conversations that are had. I mean, we had an event last night we were at,
Yeah,
and I had a conversation today with someone, and you never know how many of those are actually happening in
right.
different rooms. And so you start with something that compounds over time and it just grows. And then before you know it, you go from hoping things are going to work out to they're working out and you need to keep up.
Yeah, we're hiring VAs right now to help with it, and it's really exciting. I love to hear that. And yeah, one of the biggest things that I have gotten out of this, it wasn't even an intent, but not only have I met people that I've never would have met both in this valley and nationally, but I have learned so much. Like I'm very genuine when I talk about if I'm meeting with like a newer investor, they have things to teach me. And I've learned about strategies and different wealth building techniques that I never even knew were on my radar. If I would have had what I built, if I would have had the network when I was starting my investing journey, I would have gone a lot further at that time, but I didn't know some of the things that were available to me.
Yeah, yeah. So it's some of us are lucky that you created this, several years ago because of your work. We're actually standing on the shoulder of a giant who created this pathway for us to pursue, and now we just have to pursue it and just keep doing what you created, the frameworks. And so I appreciate what you've done, and it's been great to meet other investors and like-minded people in the group. I joined just a little over a year ago, and to watch what's happened from the time I joined to even today, it's really impressive to see the amount of people, the commitment and the connections, and then also the money that's moving because of this organization. And it's growing Idaho and other places too. So with that,
Thank you.
probably came a lot of pressure at times. And I want to discuss that, not too deep, but
Yeah.
when did it get hard, or what were some of the, maybe the challenges that you experienced along the way?
I think probably some of the hardest pieces of it, whether it's Idaho R.E.I.N or any kind of, business, when you're in a people business, it gets hard and you've got conflict in relationships. And sometimes the people that are with you at the very beginning are not necessarily the same people that are with you at the end, but that's okay because everybody serves a purpose and are there for a reason in that season of your business journey. And
Yep.
so I always say I'm a recovering people pleaser. And when there has been conflict along the way, that has been probably the toughest pieces of any business that I've run along the way, because I love people and I want them to love me back and I want it just to flow and be in harmony. And it doesn't always work out that way, but there's greater purpose in that. So definitely, I think that the human part of it is, at least for me as a soft like soul kind of person, it's been the toughest part along the journey. But with that, I have learned so much more, and I'm still learning about trusting what God's plan is for me, for one thing, and my own intuition, my own gut on where things need to head. And it hasn't steered me wrong. It's when I get too involved with wondering what everybody else thinks and get pulled into too many other directions that I have found myself kind of off the tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think understanding that it's not necessarily where we think it's going. It's where the universe, God, the venture itself needs to go, and our openness to that route to enable it and get out of our own way sometimes. Because
Yes.
for me, I've gotten in my own head where I overcomplicate things from time to time. I don't want to disappoint people either. And when conflict happens, sometimes you have to, and you have to realize that's just part of the journey. That's part of the path. And it's really the resilience factor, how you bounce back and how you take that next step that really differentiates you from people that get stuck there. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about building multiple ventures at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because for some people, entrepreneurship is the most intimidating thing ever. To start one business, to take that risk is terrifying. But you've been able to start multiple different organizations and businesses. And I want to ask how you started that, like going from one venture to two, or let's say, starting the podcast after you had the network
Yeah.
started. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it can work well as long as you have a synergy and that you're involved, and they all kind of feed into one another. And what I've seen that doesn't work well, and I can point to, like, I mentioned a restaurant or something like that. When you're dealing with a couple of different ventures that are completely apples and oranges and they have no tie-in together, I think that is really, really tough to get traction and to be able to move faster on that. And there have been times when I've definitely had too much going on at once. But I think if you do, again, just making sure they feed into one another. And then one thing that's been super helpful for me is time blocking and even designating certain days to each thing that I'm working on, or big rock that I'm trying to get done with. And it's gotten so that even I've streamlined personally where I'm doing certain things, like every Monday, Tuesday, I'm behind the scenes unless we have an event. But then Wednesday, Thursday, I'm out public facing, and then Friday is more recovery, and you have to be like super vigilant with your time. And I wasn't for a lot of years, and it caused me unnecessary stress, I would say, because I think there's something in your synapses when you're going from this problem to this problem to that problem to this idea, and it's all in there. And again, it's just hard to get that momentum going. So you can definitely do it, but I would just caution you to be careful in that respect. I listened once, and I had a chance to have a talk with a gentleman that was a very successful entrepreneur. He actually owned Priceline at the time. It was at a conference, and he's like, yes, you can have it all, because he's on multiple businesses. You can have it all. You just can't necessarily have it all at once. But you can build off on them. But get one going up and running and on the right tracks first before you move on to the second one.
Yeah, yeah. I have a personal experience with that where I'm still growing my two businesses. I have a property management business and a real estate agency that I'm trying to grow side by side. But if I didn't time block, which is what I learned in previous, professional careers and other organizations, even when I was much younger, I'm really grateful that I have learned how to do that, because I would be so scrambled and mixed minded about everything, because you have moving parts, so many moving parts with multiple ventures, multiple businesses. And I do the same thing. I time block. I have certain times where I'm recording podcasts, and I have certain times where I'm doing calling, and I have certain times where I'm working on contracts, and different times where I'm showing houses. And so having that time blocked and based on my priorities is it's a cheat code. And I think that if you're not using your calendar and you're not specifically allocating time of your day to commit to those ventures, you're not able to go as deep in them, and you're not going to understand what your limitations are when you do get deep into them. And so having a podcast and a real estate company and a property management company that kind of feeds into each other, and we're talking about the same thing, is so much easier than having a podcast about sports. And it's
Right.
something totally different.
Yeah,
Where I need
that's a
nuance.
hobby. Yeah.
It's like a hobby, and there's not a lot of synergy there. And so going deeper is a huge part of it, because what I've heard is that you commit too many things with your time, you're going to be shallow on every single one of those. And so becoming an expert at one thing first, then committing to the next thing and adding as you go.
Mhm.
100% agree that you have to choose, how much time you're willing to commit to build these. And for you, for the long-term mindset, for me, I have the same mindset of long-term. I think it doesn't matter how long it takes. This is going to be my lifestyle. This is going to be what I do for X amount of time, no matter what. And so
Mhm.
there's obviously hard seasons that come with that. Life happens, personal things happen, but just having that mental framework where you know that you're showing up today 100% for this or 100% for that, instead of 50% on each, and you don't really get anywhere. It's been beneficial. So I
And
want to talk about these ventures that you've started. I've met so many people through the investor network. I went to the convention last year. The first one was great, learned so much. But I also was starting in real estate early 2010s, and I started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I went to some conferences because I was selling real estate software, and met a lot of really great minded people. And I think that's what sparked that in me, is that I like connecting people. I like creating things, and I love real estate and what it can bring and do for you personally and financially. But with your adventures, I've learned about you just in the last couple of years. I was attracted to the idea, especially here in Idaho, where there's really not. I'm from Dallas, Fort Worth. They have 100 conventions for real estate. They have them
yeah.
every day, and so to have something like that here, it stood out to me. And so I want to talk to you a little bit more about how the ventures have led to one another, how they feed each other, the connection between the two, the synergy, and how many doors that's been opening for you because of that proximity.
That's a great question. Well, I do think we have something special here in Idaho because I look at other states and know all of the, you know, so many real estate meetups and conferences and all the things, and we really were lacking that here. So it's really cool to see it come that far. And even though it is Idaho based, personally, it has opened up a lot of doors for me nationally. And it can be down to getting a real estate referral. And now I'm referring out most of my real estate business, but being able to place that potential investor in the state of Idaho in wonderful hands with a great agent here, that certainly could be a revenue source. We've got more and more national companies looking at the state of Idaho and coming to me asking how they can get involved and how they can participate. And there's just been a lot of opportunities that are coming, like came, but now really starting to roll in because of that. And also because of that, we got to have more discernment than ever on what's a good opportunity and what's not. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, but we're excited about the eyes being here on Idaho.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of attention the last few years.
Mhm.
Even my friends in other states are like, where did Idaho come from? They're like,
Right?
I'm hearing about Idaho on TV and radio from people I know, and they're like, what's going on there? And a lot of my friends didn't quite understand why I moved to Idaho. I married someone from here, which is the biggest reason I'm out here. But when I
Yeah.
came here, I was like, okay, this place is not what I thought it was. It's really great. The community, the outdoors, the growth that it's seeing right now as still an emerging market. It's not even close to where it's going.
Yeah.
And I think the surrounding states are starting to recognize that too, because they're all moving here. And that brings opportunity. It brings more capital for investment. The
Mhm.
skyline of Idaho, Boise is going to change. And it's cool to meet the people that are part of that and to be connecting and to be engaging with them and to really kind of do my part too. But I want to ask you, do you think capital or community is more valuable?
Mm. Well, I think uh, personally, community. I know capital, that's obviously money. When you're talking about capital, like raising capital for real estate investing, you get that usually through your network, which is community. And you find the deals through your network. And if you find the deal, the capital comes. The money's there as long as there's great deals. And the money is there. One thing I'm finding, we talk about people like with their eyes on Idaho, when you have a community, people want to get in front of that community and they are willing to invest in what we're doing in order to be able to do that. Now, I am very, very picky on who gets in front of our community, as you know, Kannon. So I definitely have not taken advantage of that like I probably could have, but it's because I'm wanting to always do what's in the best interest of our community. But the definitely my answer would be community. And that's just a thread my whole life. Again, with my first career being an event planner and then a teacher, I love a good room full of great people that are there to learn. And there's just a wonderful feeling about it. And when you're with a community like an Idaho R.E.I.N or anything like that, a conference, an entrepreneurial conference, there's something so special about people that are there by choice, that are invested their own money to get there, and they're wrapped in listening and paying attention. It's so different than if you go to a conference where everyone is an employee and their boss made them go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I agree with you. I think community offers so much more dimension. If you think about capital, it's one dimensional, it's just money.
Yeah.
So what do you do with it? It's like, where's the ideas? Where's the connection? Where's the people that are going to make this idea happen? With a community, a byproduct of that is the capital.
For sure.
And team, creating teams and partnerships and joint ventures, and the results are benefiting everyone that's involved, in that community, rather than the one investor who happened to have the money who put it in and then figure it out, right? Well, that leads me to my next point. As this organization grows,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see it going, and how are you systematically scaling it?
That has been an iterative process, as you can imagine, Cannon, but I am really intent on building this out so that it's something that is long lasting, whether I am leading it or not. I'm working to put systems in place so that someone could effectively run this organization in the long term. I'm in a position, I recently really scaled down my real estate operations, and I want to be able to eventually travel more and have some options there, although this is a huge passion of mine. So I am scaling it in such a way, using systems, so that the goal is for it to maintain the long term. I know about other real estate investing associations in other states that have been around for 40 years. So I think that's great. I think we've come too far not to do that. And the systemizing of it has been great. We actually have a guy in our group, Max Reich, who's with EOS. So shout out to you, Max, if you're listening. But he was really helpful with me in the beginning in helping us identify like what our core values are and what we're going to tackle in order to grow this, and what stage we're going to grow everything. And, I'm still working that out quarter by quarter right now. But I think that we've got something great in place. We've tried a lot of things, and there's always trial and error in a new business. But we are getting something in place that is resonating with the people. And I'm just thrilled to be along for the ride, because this is a bigger thing than me. It hasn't always made sense from a financial or a business perspective, but it's something that I've been drawn to, and I know that it's here for a reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. Has there ever been a time where you wanted to quit?
Oh yeah. I won't lie. Yeah. It's again, there's a lot of iterations of what we've come through. And when I made it, and this, any business owner would relate to this, when you make a transition from 100% free community or product or whatever anybody is selling, when you go to something where you ask for a small amount of money in exchange after being free, there's always some resistance that happens. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, kind of at the beginning, when you have seasons, people there in your life for seasons and that sort of thing. And so it was really confusing at the time, kind of figuring out, okay, how are we going to do this? We have to have some resources to cover some overhead to maintain a business, even just to open the doors, right, for any event. And so we've worked through all of that. But there were some times where, when you're starting a business, you're paying out of pocket to run it. It doesn't always feel fun.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a challenge. And I think that's one of your strengths too, is being forward focusing and, being a long-term visionary. And I want to ask, when you strip away the titles, the organizations, being a founder, a connector, and a host, what mindset has allowed you to sustain building at this level? Like, what are the fundamental thought processes or the mindset that you've taken to be open to even trying to do this?
Well, I think the fact that it's fun for me is helpful. And I run a couple of things, especially the last couple of years. I run everything through a framework of one, is it creating something that's has the ability to bring revenue, to be able to make it fun and to grow. So there's that. And then is it fun? Does it bring me joy? And so if I'm running everything through that funnel in my mind, it's really, really helpful, because there's a lot of things that I experienced along the way that didn't do either, and I've slowly had to slough them out of my life and off my plate to focus on things that are either revenue producing or bring me joy. And being in a community and doing events obviously brings me joy. And so now it's just a matter of like marrying the two and make sure that it's sustainable long term. Pat Flynn is a famous like influencer, podcaster, business owner, and he has this phrase I love. He's like, what would it look like if it was easy? And so I've been utilizing that in my mind too, like just continue to simplify and simplify and simplify, because the complexity is what brings me down.
Yeah, I mentioned
It gets
earlier
me
that
down.
I do the same thing where I'll overthink things and I'll overcomplicate it a little bit. But what you just said just kind of struck a chord with me. It's simplifying things and saying it another way. Does it make money and does it make me happy?
Right. Yeah,
That
exactly.
is like the core fundamental part that keeps you from burning out. It keeps you from hitting, rock bottom and not being able to keep pursuing your passion, because if it's revenue potential, then, you could monetize it. And that I think is something that everyone can take, is just to simplify things to the core fundamentals of how you feel, like how you view it. And is it going to keep you going?
Thank you. Yeah, and you can figure out something that makes you money, but if you hate it, if it's not going to bring you any joy, it's not going to last, and people are going to see right through that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Or if it's just for money.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if for the listeners on today, if someone's considering building maybe multiple ventures or multiple organizations right now, but they're afraid of that pressure, they're afraid of failure, what advice would you share with them?
Well, one, probably not to take themselves so seriously. Being in real estate, we have a saying with agents in the room, we'd always say, it's at the end of the day, it's real estate. Nobody died. It's something that can come and go. We're all going to fail. The biggest, people that you see on stage, they are getting paid to speak, not because they were great at everything, because they had a failure story and they came back from it. And so just consider that a badge of honor. You're going to fail at something probably. So I would definitely say that. And the other thing that has been resonating me is the idea that you don't have to go all in forever. Like you're going to take a lot of consistency and thought process, and you're going to be times where you're feeling like you're just so in the weeds and figuring things out. But if you just like do some small bursts of momentum, it's going to do huge things for your business down the line. But you don't have to like trudge through all of it for years and years. Some of my biggest results in business and in real estate investing have come from like 90-day bursts of momentum and focus. And then you can let up the gas a little bit, evaluate, see how it's going, make little tweaks. But it's definitely, to succeed long term, you've got to take the ebbs and flows and not be all in all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when you have that energy, capitalize on it.
Right.
And there's going to be fast times, there's going to be slow times. And for me, I know this is true because I work long, long hours, usually almost every day. And then I'll come into a week where I feel truly burnt out. And I'm just like, I'm not motivated to do anything right now. So I need to give back to myself and recover so I can actually go back after it. And probably personally, I probably need to balance that a little bit better. But I know when you're deep in, you have so much responsibility and people and activities demanding your time one way or another. So leaning into your strengths, leaning into your passions, leaning into what makes you happy with your time can carry you a little bit further than forcing things that just shouldn't maybe be forced. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of this insight. I respect you and what you've done with this community. I'm happy to be part of it. And being a connector, I don't think is accidental. It's who you are, and you're just fulfilling your passion and what your highest use of time is. And so wanted to say thanks again.
Well, thank you, Cannon. I love having you in the community, and it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you this year. And what you're doing with this podcast is going to impact lives and in life. I know you are going places, and excited to know you.
Well, thanks again. And thanks to our listeners for engaging with another episode of Callis Mindset with Kannon Callis. I really appreciate you listening. And if today's conversation led you to some clarity, motivation, or a new way of thinking, share it with someone you love and trust. And a huge thank you to Jonna Weber for bringing real insight, real experience, real mindset today. If you want to know more about her, go find her, Jonna Weber, online. Check out the Idaho Real Estate Investor Network, the Real Estate Investing for Life podcast. And if you want more conversations like these, more tools for discipline and leadership, check out the Callis Mindset on all platforms, at Callis Mindset podcast on Instagram, and at Callis Mindset on YouTube. Keep building your mindset that sets you apart. I'm Kannon Callis, and we'll see you next time.